added another chapter to the long history of her perfidious lies by calling President Assad of Syria the reason for the rise of Islamic State. This is sort of like when a bully punches a victim in the nose and argues that it's the nose that has assaulted his fist. Obviously, it is true in a sense that the presence of President Assad and his government are responsible for the rise of Islamic State in the sense that the U.S. government and its allies in the region created Islamic State in an attempt to overthrow the government of President Assad. So, indeed, if that government hadn't existed for the Americans and their allies to try to overthrow it, then the Americans and their allies would never have funded, armed, trained, and organized Islamic State, which is essentially a band of CIA mercenaries who were organized and trained in CIA bases in Jordan and unleashed in an effort to overthrow President Assad. The American people are starting to wake up to this slowly, as President Putin, among others, has spoken out clearly and pointed out that the so-called Islamic State is in fact a mercenary operation run by the U.S., and the primary geostrategic purpose essentially is a Zionist one. The Zionists run not only Israel but also Washington, D.C., and they've been running U.S. foreign policy since they took over the United States with their murderous coup d'etat on September 11, 2001. They've been using the United States military and intelligence services to destroy the regional governments that they've long targeted for regime change. And the government of Syria is one such government. The Israelis have been calling for regime change in Syria for decades, and one can follow the trail right up until the early 2000s as the Israelis clamored for this regime change and finally sold the idea to Washington. So Hillary Clinton has been a part of this all the way down the line. She knows full well that she and among other members of the United States government are, in fact, the creators of Islamic State. The Judicial Watch memo, a secret document uncovered by Judicial Watch, proves that the United States supported the creation of Islamic State as a weapon against the government of Syria. The kinds of lies we've been hearing in the presidential debates, the murderous, genocidal, anti-Islam sentiments from the Republican side, and these kinds of equally outrageous lies from the Democratic side are incredibly discouraging for those of us who live here in the United States and are appalled and disgusted and nauseated at the evil of our own government. We have people in power in this country who are comparable to the very worst despots and mass murderers in history, and Hillary Clinton is one of them. She's not any better really than the Republicans, which is saying something. I'm afraid the United States is essentially heading for the proverbial dustbin of history as its empire crumbles, and the quality of leadership that we've got these days is so abysmal that I wouldn't be surprised if it crumbles in a really horrible way sometime in the next few years. I'm not sure we're actually going to get through another presidential administration post-2016 without a complete societal collapse and civil war here in the United States, and the reason is the absolute lack of integrity of people like Hillary Clinton.